I was already on my knees, clutching my chest, the familiar tightening pulling every bit of breath from me. The wheeze in my lungs was so loud it echoed in my ears, like a balloon collapsing from the inside. I reached for the counter where my inhaler usually sat, my vision swimming. My mom's eyes caught mine from across the kitchen. She didn't rush forward. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she picked up the inhaler with 2 fingers, like it was something dirty, and walked to the trash can. With a flick of her wrist, I heard it clatter against the garbage. "Air shouldn't be wasted on you," she said flatly, her voice cutting deeper than the lack of oxygen in my lungs. "Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video." My dad leaned against the doorway, a smirk pulling at his mouth. "She's right. Struggling like a fish out of water. Pathetic. Maybe this teaches you some gratitude." I tried to crawl toward the trash, my hands trembling, nails scraping against the linoleum. Every inhale felt like knives tearing my chest apart. My vision blurred, but I saw my sister standing behind them, arms crossed, smirking like it was entertainment. "Look at her," she giggled, "always stealing attention with her gasping, 'Drama queen.'" I managed to whisper, barely audible, "Please." But my mother stepped in front of me, her heel pressing into my fingers as I reached toward the trash can. She leaned down so close I could smell her perfume mixed with cruelty. "Your sister's school recital is tonight. You'll live or you won't. Either way, we don't need your little scenes." I collapsed back, every second stretching into eternity. My dad barked a laugh so sharp it made my body jolt. "She looks like she's cleaning the floor with her tears." When the attack finally subsided, because I had nothing left to give, I lay there on the cold tiles, drenched in sweat, my chest heaving like it had run a marathon without legs to carry it. I was alive, but only because my body refused to give them the satisfaction of watching me die. Later that night, I found the inhaler still buried under coffee grounds and eggshells. My fingers trembled as I wiped it clean, but I knew right then that this house wasn't home. It was a coffin waiting to close. They didn't even ask if I was okay. Instead, my mom walked past me with her coat slung across her shoulders, smiling at my sister. "Come on, honey. Real daughters don't need to beg for air. We've got a recital to enjoy." And my dad's final words before the door slammed behind them, "Don't wait up. Trash doesn't need company." I sat there, my back against the fridge, clutching the half-clean inhaler. My lungs still burned, but not as much as the truth. To them, I was nothing. Not a daughter. Not family, just a burden taking up oxygen. And that night, something hardened inside me. I realized they thought my weakness was permanent. But they didn't see the part of me they had built without knowing. The part that had survived everything. And that part was about to learn how to fight back. The next morning, my chest still ached from the attack. My ribs felt like they'd been punched from the inside, but breakfast was already on the table. Not for me, of course. My sister sat at the head, flipping her hair while my mom laid out pancakes in front of her like she was royalty. My dad unfolded the newspaper, his coffee steaming beside him. The smell was so strong it made me dizzy. I reached for a piece of toast. My mom slapped my hand so hard the bread fell back on the plate. "That's not for you. You'll eat after your sister. If there's anything left." My sister smirked, taking a bite so slow it felt like she was showing off. "Maybe you should go outside and breathe some fresh air instead." "Oh, wait." She let her words trail off and they all burst into laughter. I didn't laugh. I just sat there, fists curled under the table. My dad glanced at me over his paper. "You should thank your sister for letting you stay here at all. If it were up to me, I'd have tossed you out years ago. Animals don't deserve a roof." "Say it," my mom snapped. "Say thank you to your sister." The words stuck in my throat. My chest was still tight. The memory of them kicking my inhaler into the trash was too raw. I shook my head. That was all it took. My father shoved his chair back so hard it screeched. He grabbed me by the arm and yanked me up from the table. His grip was so tight it left fingerprints on my skin. "Ungrateful rat," he hissed, dragging me toward the back door. Outside, the cold morning air cut into my lungs. He shoved me onto the damp grass. My mother stood in the doorway, broom in hand like a scepter. Clean the yard while your sister eats. Maybe then you'll learn your place." I looked at the grass, at the dew soaking into my clothes, and I knew this wasn't about chores. This was humiliation. My sister appeared at the window with a plate in her hands, waving her fork at me. "Look, Dad, she looks like a stray dog out there. Maybe she should lick the grass for breakfast." The laughter again. Always the laughter. That day, something shifted. I realized they fed off my gasps, my weakness. They wanted me to choke, to cry, to beg. That was their entertainment. And every time I gave in, they won. So I stopped giving in. I ate in silence. I worked in silence. When they called me names, I swallowed it whole. I learned how to breathe slower, even when my chest was burning, because I knew one day I'd have to outlast them. Then came the breaking point. One evening, another attack hit. My chest locked up and I collapsed near the couch. My sister barely looked up from her phone. My mom actually stepped over me to reach the remote. My dad laughed, sipping his beer. There she goes again. Maybe this time she'll save us. The trouble. I dragged myself toward the door. My fingers clawed at the floor. Every breath was a war. I looked up and caught my reflection in the glass of the door. Pale, shaking, broken. And I thought, if I die here, it will be their victory. That night, I decided I wasn't going to die their way. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen while they ate breakfast. I didn't ask for food. I didn't ask for anything. I just stood there with my inhaler in my hand, clean, ready, working. My mom sneered. "Still alive? Shame. I thought you'd finally done something useful." My dad folded his paper, smirking. "Don't get too comfortable. You'll never be more than a gasping mouth wasting space." I said nothing. I only smiled because for the first time they didn't realize I was already making a plan, not to humiliate them in front of anyone else, not to ruin their reputation. No, this was going to be quieter, sharper, a revenge they wouldn't see coming until it was already choking them the way they had choked me. I waited. That was the hardest part. Staying silent while they spat their poison day after day. They thought silence meant defeat, but silence was where I sharpened myself. The plan began simple. I knew their routines better than they knew themselves. My mother's endless vanity, her nights soaking in perfume and hairspray like she was preparing for a beauty pageant that no longer existed. My father's cigarettes and beers, his mocking coughs as he bragged about how real lungs could handle it. And my sister, parading around as if the world bent for her, never lifting a finger, only laughing when I struggled to breathe. They had all forgotten something. I understood weakness better than they did. I lived it, and weakness makes you notice every detail. One evening, while my mother was busy scolding me for leaving smudges on the windows, I noticed her vanity table was covered with bottles, makeup, foundation, creams, perfumes. She boasted once that her image was all she had left. "A woman's value is in how she looks," she sneered, "something you'll never understand." That's when the first spark lit. The next week, I quietly swapped some of her expensive perfumes and creams with cheap substitutes, the kind that smelled rancid after sitting out. I didn't stop there. I left her true favorites in a locked box hidden beneath my bed. Each morning, she sprayed herself, thinking she smelled like roses, but when she walked out in public, whispers followed. "What's that smell?" Neighbors turned their noses. Friends she bragged to started pulling away. She thought her enemies were mocking her, never realizing it was her own daughter watching silently from the corner of the room. My father was next. His pride was in his breath, his voice loud, his laugh booming, his smoke curling through the air like a king on a throne. So I started stealing. One cigarette here, one there. Not enough to notice at first, but then I replaced some of his packs with lookalikes, filled with tea leaves and dust. He would light up, inhale deep, and cough violently as if his own lungs betrayed him. "What's wrong with me?" he barked one night, pounding the table as his throat tightened. My mom fussed over him, but I stood in the corner, inhaler tucked safely in my hand, breathing steady. Then came my sister, the golden child. She treated me like her shadow, the one only good for catching scraps. She had a routine of leaving her expensive shoes by the door and blaming me whenever they had scuff marks. So one night, when the house was silent, I switched her prized designer heels with identical fakes, ones that cracked at the seams when she strutted. The next day, at her big outing with friends, the heel snapped clean in half in front of everyone. She limped home in tears, shrieking, "They laughed at me! Everyone laughed!" I just sat on the couch, pretending not to hear, my chest rising and falling slowly, steady, controlled. But this wasn't enough. These were small cuts, little cracks. I wanted them to feel what I felt that night, gasping on the kitchen floor, the panic, the loss of control, the helplessness. So I built the final step. My father kept the house alarm codes written in his drawer. I memorized them. My mother always locked her vanity but left the spare key taped under the counter. I found it. My sister trusted her passwords to her phone with sticky notes stuck inside her drawer. I took those too. Then, one night when they were all out at my sister's latest celebration dinner, I moved everything. My mother's real perfumes and creams, my father's actual cigarette stash, my sister's prized clothes and jewelry. All of it. I packed them in boxes and drove them far outside the city. Not sold, not stolen, just gone, hidden in a storage unit under a name they'd never trace. When they came home, the house looked the same. But slowly, they realized nothing was where it belonged. My mother's skin broke out from the cheap creams. Her friends refused to visit. My father's health spiraled when he thought his body was failing him. My sister's reputation collapsed when her outfits betrayed her in public. And every time they panicked, every time they screamed, I sat there breathing steady. The breaking point came weeks later. My father stormed into my room, coughing, his face red. "What did you do?" he demanded, grabbing my wrist. My mom stood behind him, her hair frizzed, her face blotchy. My sister cried, mascara running. I pulled out my inhaler and held it up between us. "I did nothing," I said calmly. "But now you know what it feels like, to gasp, to choke, to be laughed at while you fall apart." They froze. For the first time, there was silence in the house. No sneers, no laughter. Just silence. That night, I packed a single bag and left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just walked away with steady steps and steady breaths. Behind me, the house felt smaller, darker. They had nothing left, not their pride, not their comfort, not their illusions. And me? I finally had air. Real air. Not wasted, not stolen. Mine. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.